topic today is innovation in time of crisis. So we want to talk about how Singapore is tackling and overcoming the current challenges, as well as about promising opportunities in an entrepreneurial context. I was supposed to welcome 3 guests. So far, 2 have joined us online. We're still waiting for the third one. We'll see if he manages to log in, but I think we're going to start for now. So I will introduce you to our first 2 guest experts for today. So we have Teodora. Teodora is Program Director at German Entrepreneurship Asia. She's helping startups to internationalize, and especially her program Scalar 8, which is bringing Singaporean businesses to Germany. Welcome, Teodora.
Thank you, Marisa. Good evening.
And then we have welcome. Then we have Dennis here. Dennis is the Regional Group Director Europe at Enterprise Singapore. He's stationed in Frankfurt, not tuning in from Singapore today. His topics are innovation and B2B partnerships. And our third guest is Calvin from GTR Ventures. Oh, now we're here. Perfect timing. Hi. Wow. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, Marisa.
I was just introducing our other 2 experts. Here we have Calvin. Calvin is the co-founder and chief investment officer at GTR Ventures. It's the world's first venture building and investment platform specialized in trade and supply chain. Thank you all for being here. Calvin, Teodora, thank you so much for tuning in from Singapore. We know it's very late. We appreciate your time. You all 3, you work with innovation in one way or the other. So my opening question to you would be, we're facing this crisis. Many countries have already started to be in the recession. Some are starting to be. And then usually the rule, the surviving of the fittest applies. Why do you think we should continue to opt for innovation? Maybe Dennis, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Marisa, and hi, everybody. It's good to meet all of you virtually. So I think, for me, I head up the Enterprise Singapore office in Western Europe from Frankfurt, where I'm based. So I think in response to your question, I think innovation will remain important in the COVID world simply because the pandemic has created, very unusual challenges that require very different and very fast kind of solutions between us. So I think open innovation between startups and corporates will be the key to resolving the challenges that we face in this very challenging environment. So just to give you an example, so a few months ago, Singapore needed to ramp up our COVID-19 testing capacity quite urgently due to a spike of cases in our foreign workers' dormitories. However, we faced a shortage of nasal swab sticks to collect samples for COVID-19 tests. So what the Singapore government did is that we turned to a group of corporates, startups, and universities for help to produce swab sticks via 3D printing. So earlier we saw Sean from Creates 3D who joined us. So he was part of that national consortium that was headed to produce nasal swab sticks. And due to the efforts of Sean and the other companies in this area, we are now transitioning from a situation whereby we have a shortage to a situation whereby Singapore is 3D printing up to 1 million swab sticks for COVID testing every week. And I think this will allow us to hit our target of about 8,000 to about 40,000. So currently we are at about 8,000 COVID-19 tests right now. We hope to hit about 40,000 tests per day. And all this is thanks to the efforts of innovative startups such as Creates 3D.
Right, thank you. Calvin, what would you say? Why should we still opt for innovation? Should we even invest in a time of crisis?
Thank you. And just to make sure that I'm completely tuned in to the German audience and the German context, I had to practice some German. So, Dankeschön, Frau Schneider. Schneider.
Herzlich willkommen.
Right? Yeah. And of course, to warm up for the audience, I had to drink a pint of Munich lager from Bavaria.
Perfect.
Have to. Paulina, right?
You're in the right mood.
Just to get in the mood. But to answer your question and to echo what Dennis and my fellow panelists have said, I mean, it's innovate or die, because if anything, this COVID has shown that the old business models are dead. And the only way going forward, all of us stuck at home, dreaming of the new normal that's never going to come, is to keep going forward. I mean, I'm so sorry to be so formally dressed, but I'm wearing this shirt right now, which is extinct. It's Brook Brothers. It's just got filed for Chapter 11, right? And why is Tesla still sort of not so profitable, but still being going up and up and up in terms of the valuation? So I think the way out is to innovate, and companies which have raised funds like ourselves, as part of the 100 over funds in Singapore that have raised, about 1.3 billion even the last quarter, have a lot of dry powder, and we're waiting to deploy into firms like LionBot, whom I actually met in an Enterprise Singapore event, actually. So congrats to LionBot. And there you go. So I think there's a lot of dry powder. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of Robinhood, VC investors interested in tech. All of them are also now looking for things to look into. So I think this is the right time. Thank you for this initiative.
Thank you. Teodora, would be interesting to hear from your perspective as well, since you're working with both German and Singaporean startups. What is your impression? Why should they still continue to fight and found companies right now? Why should they go for innovation right now?
So I mean, I do agree with Kelvin and with Dennis about pivoting and finding a new solution to adopt your product. And I think it's very important, especially from our perspective, at Scalable, we help companies to scale internationally. And I think proactively seeking for diversification, not only of a product, but also at your market presence, can really ensure you to poor economic conditions in certain areas. For example, we do have startups here who had a couple of clients in China and Korea, and when COVID started, actually, they really have to look actively and proactively for new markets to really start exploring and diversify their portfolio, seek for more sustainable revenue. So being flexible, agile, and to have really systematic and targeted response to the current situation is very important for the startups. And we are glad that our actually portfolio startups are adjusting very well to the situation.
Do you see, since you're so familiar with working with both cultures, do you see any difference in the entrepreneurial mindset of a German founder and a Singaporean founder?
I wouldn't say so. I don't see a difference between founders in terms of where they're coming from, but there is definitely a difference in the way they're approaching their business and how resilient they are. I think there are a lot of startups focusing now on finding additional investments and bridge funding to really to help with their negative cash flow, and some of them are more focused on finding a new way to really find new market opportunities. I think that we have to all deal with the construct we're having in our countries, but I think that entrepreneurs are the same everywhere. I don't think there is a difference between the way that Singaporean companies are approaching. It's really important to be very flexible.
All right.
I agree, actually, because I'm sorry, because we have 10 companies globally, in France, in UK, in Singapore, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, China. We also have German co-founders, and we compare that with the Singaporean co-founders, and I think the key word is resilience, right? I mean, a startup is glorified in the media as being sexy. To be on your LinkedIn profile and call yourself a co-founder is a very glamorous thing, and it's all the more accentuated by popular media. But in actual fact, it is a very tough life. You have to raise to make sure that your burn doesn't run out. 6 months, 12 months, how much more you gotta go? There's founder burnout as well. So I think resilience is key, and all the more, the better ones will emerge and survive from this crisis.
Yeah, that's true. For those that are maybe not as strong or don't have so much capital lying back, has the Singapore government introduced some instrument or measures that help the startups through this time? Maybe, Dennis, you know something about this?
Yeah, so I think for Singapore, we have been hit hard by COVID-19, mainly because we are a small economy that's very reliant on external demand. So the Singapore government has introduced four budgets this year, equivalent to about 20% of our GDP. So in euro terms, that's something close to 60 billion euros. So in this package, there are two special schemes dedicated to startups. So the first is that the Singapore government is expanding our current scheme of co-investing into Singapore startups alongside private investors. So we have set up a special situation fund of about 285 million Singapore dollars, which works out to about 200 million euros, to help co-invest into new categories of startups alongside private investors such as Kelvin. So this pot will go towards new categories of startups that would otherwise not be eligible under existing conditions. So this is the first thing that we have done. And the second thing that we have done is to create a new bridge financing scheme to help startups tide over this especially challenging period. So I think in terms of startup financing, we have done these two things. And we are also trying to engineer additional demand for startups by creating what we call national innovation challenges. So we thought that COVID-19 being something that's been a very exceptional situation that Singapore faces, should be a situation whereby we could create a platform for startups and corporates to jointly engage each other on open innovation challenges to find solutions to the common challenges that we face. So we will be launching a series of open innovation challenges to match Singapore startups to Singapore enterprises who need solutions for the new normal in areas such as sanitation, crowd management, and we expect to launch these challenges pretty soon. And we will also welcome participation by German startups in this challenge.
Nice, that's good to know for our viewers. Thank you. Calvin, now GTR Ventures is mostly investing in startups from the trade and supply chain industry. Do you think that this crisis or the corona situation has made digital health such an important topic that your company could imagine that this is an area that you would invest in the future as well?
Yes, definitely. I think we started out with a very specialized focus because that was how we differentiated ourselves, doing what we know best and investing in what we knew best. I think COVID has dramatically and irrevocably changed supply chains. Today, with trade war, China, US, uncertainty in the European region in terms of the shipping lines getting their food supplies, their critical parts components. Nearshoring is a real possibility for manufacturing. I think supply chain will change, and we're part of a think tank with a couple of distinguished panelists globally, which we can talk about later. On this note, actually, we are not resting on our laurels. We intend to broaden our mandate to go into from being very narrow, like a laser focus, but and then going all of a sudden like universe blasting. Because one thing we have found is that COVID has revealed a stress test inherent in the startup market. I always like to say it is great to be in the seats, series A, B, C, but when you're not so resilient and out of a portfolio of 100 companies or 10 companies, 8 will find one way to reinvent themselves. So this has given rise to secondary markets that we think are very useful to then look at as an instrument. So you will want to then now combine your forces together, having both fought in the same turf towards the same companies. And when now it comes to valuing your company versus another competitor, and you guys decide, hey, together let's be stronger to survive, how will you then value that company? How is the secondary market structured? So we think we're going to go from very laser to very broad, because we see opportunities in the secondary market space, and then it can be any sector actually, because the secondary market instrument is a horizontal thing, which we think will fill the gaps in capital raising this part of the world.
Yeah, thank you. So entering different industries, different markets. Maybe this is something, Teodora, you can say something about, not about like switching industries, but maybe entering new markets. I know that you were planning with your program to come to Germany in the fall with a batch of startups that are planning to enter the German markets. Now we can't really travel across continents. How do you think, like actors like us, how can we still support startups in their internationalization? Or is that something that's off the table for now? Do they have to focus on other things?
Well, actually, what we have done, we were supposed to be in Germany before a month. We started in March with our first batch of startups, and this was just like 2 weeks before the lockdown. So actually, we had to adapt and move to virtual program, and we extended the whole program by 3 weeks just to really support the startups a little bit longer. What we noticed, though, is actually, though the global pandemic is really changing not only how startups have to adapt to the new conditions, it's also the traditional business becoming more flexible in the way they're conducting conversations and they're negotiating. So what we noticed that though that we are unable to come to Germany at the moment, we are still hopeful that probably in the autumn we'll be able to come. But what we noticed that corporates and local stakeholders actually were very open to have discussions with our startups, and some of them are even discussing pilot opportunities. Now that you can do a demo remote, you can even nearly launch a remote pilot, and some of our startups actually, most of them are offering remote monitoring solution either for the Industry 4.0, for automation, for medical, healthcare, for compliance and fintech. So actually, I think that this was a good test for, again, we can use the word resilience, not only for our startups, but also for the traditional businesses in Germany.
Yeah, the new way of working. Okay, thank you. Time is actually going so fast. I could continue talking to you for so long, but I have to come to my last question. And for that, I will ask each of you to give us one last statement, just one short sentence for the question: which opportunities do you think can evolve from this crisis? And let's start with you, Kelvin.
I think the opportunity set is in terms of what I said earlier, the rise of a secondary market, founders that are serial entrepreneurs that want to sort of merge with other founders, and how they can come together to create new things. I don't think the reality is such that with the systematic ecosystem of accelerator, angel, seed, blah, 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 I think it's become a very complex founder environment, and it's not a one founder or two founder, one product thing. I think going forward, merger and acquisition in the earlier stage is critical, and I think this is an opportunity. I mean, I see now we have 10 companies now potentially becoming 20, because each of them are deciding to set up either the APAC branch in Singapore if they are headquartered in London, and vice versa. I mean, we have a French founder company headquartered in Singapore that we centralized from Hong Kong to Singapore, and they raise all the money in Singapore, including international investors. And being French and now they're backed by European family offices, paradoxically, to go back into their markets in Europe. So we see also that crisscross happening. So I think the opportunity is there for investors to grab, in terms of offering the same thing but in a new market, and thinking a little bit hard about white labeling instead of new creation, or joint venturing venture building even for large corporates, to enter new markets. That I think is the opportunity set. Yeah.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Maybe.
Dennis, do you want to go next?
Well, let me just
okay,
yeah.
no.
I'll
Please
just
go
probably. I mean, it's something that probably I mentioned before, but actually, all the emerging trends we're noticing in the last years of like digitalization and automation are now being accelerated by the pandemic situation. I would say that those trends are reshaping the industries and may leave a lot of for newcomers and, as Kelvin said, alliances of a group of people and stakeholders to solve really urgent problems will be probably the way to go.
Thank you. Dennis, please go ahead.
All right. So I think for Enterprise Singapore, we see that digitalization is really the clear winner from this crisis. So I think we have some examples of startups who have pitched earlier. Companies like Synopsys, Lionspot, Youku, Creates 3D, offering digital solutions. We think that another winner from this crisis would actually be longer-term transformation of our economies to become more just, sustainable. So there's been a lot of focus on the green recovery, or what the World Economic Forum calls the Great Reset. So I think this tendency is very strong in Europe, and increasingly it's making its presence felt in Asia as well. So just to share with our friends here, so just last year, my organization, Enterprise Singapore, we set up a new team called the Circular Economy and Sustainability Division. So specifically to look at how we could encourage Singapore companies to adopt more cleaner and more sustainable business practices. So we see Europe as a leader in this field, and we really look forward to sourcing best practices as well as technologies from European and German companies in this field. And as a specific follow-up, there will be a sustainability team open innovation challenge that Enterprise Singapore will be organizing at the end of this year at a major event called the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology. So this is the largest innovation festival in Singapore and probably Asia Pacific. So last year we had about close to 50,000 people who attended. And it's really kind of like, several national pavilions, and it's a festival. And we would really encourage German startups to participate in this Switch event at the end of the year.
Yeah, you should send me the links. I can share it in our network, so some German startups can apply. Okay, now we've come to the end of this little talk as well. Thank you so much, you three, for joining. It was a very nice and interesting talk.